Voice of West Virginia Athletics and a great friend of the show, Tony Caridi, joins us with Greg and Paul. David Smoke, 365 Sports. We appreciate your time, Tony. It's been a little while, but, you know, West Virginia, every time you kind of think they're about to disappear, they say, hey, wait a minute. It's a resilient team. Where are they now, in your opinion? Did they kind of right the ship in time?
Yeah, I think there may be some similarities, David, to what Baylor went through and what West Virginia went through. Obviously, when we played the upper-level teams, so K-State and Iowa State this season, and obviously you throw in Penn State as your non-conference game, and then Pitt, it was a rocky start, not the kind of start that you wanted to get into. But things have righted themselves. They played well. They went out to Arizona and got the W. Then last week they went to Cincinnati, playing with a backup quarterback, plus having changed defensive coordinators during that week. And they were able to get a win. You know, not the most polished performance offensively, but able to get it done thanks to the defense. So they made that switch at coordinator, and that defense forced 3 turnovers, which produced 17 points, and they needed every single one of them to get that win.
How confident are they with Nico if that continues to kind of have to be a thing they have to do?
He has, on each occasion throughout his career, and he's been here 3 years now, each occasion throughout his career when he's had to step up, he's found a way to win. And that includes a victory against Pitt a year ago. Garrett Green got knocked out in the 4th play of the game, and he was able to just kind of blue-collar his way through. He's won at Texas Tech. They put him out there at Arizona. He completed over 80% of his passes. Then Cincinnati last week, he, by his own admittance, did not play well at all. But to answer your question in a kind of a long way, every time they've tapped him, he's come up and has not hurt them. And so I guess that's probably the best answer to the question.
And right now, it remains to be seen on Garrett Green and his health status, right? I know they're kind of keeping that. That's probably some gamesmanship to some extent, probably also some uncertainty, but there's a chance he could play this weekend, right?
They don't care if Dave Aranda knows who's the quarterback. They just don't want David Smoke to know who's the quarterback.
I will blab it out there.
No, so I think, to your point, Paul, they are waiting to evaluate how he comes back in practice. You know, he had a head injury, which is the fun new way to say concussion, and that was against K-State, and that's been a month. And so he was cleared last week. He was the emergency QB last week. They just want to make sure that he practices well enough this week to earn that spot back out there.
Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. When it was a little bit dicey, what was the message from Neal Brown to his team and to the fan base?
Well, I think it was, let's just play the thing through. As I said, you know, the schedule was front-loaded. You had, at one point, right, so you go Penn State, you go Pitt, and Pitt just, you know, had when they won their first 7 games. And then you had K-State, and they had 1 loss when West Virginia played them. You had Iowa State, they had no losses. So, like, the combined win record of those 4 teams that they had lost to was like, you know, it was a big number, like 25-1 or something like that. I forget what it was. So he just said, like, hold tight here and let's just do an evaluation, you know, after the season's over. And so, you know, you're sitting here right now, you're 5 up and 4 down. You've got 3 left. And, you know, you could say pretty much each of these games is a toss-up the rest of the way. Baylor this week, UCF here next week, and then at Texas Tech. And so, yeah, I mean, it's doable. Is it going to happen? Don't know, but they're certainly doable. You could finish 8-4 with your 4 losses against 4 teams, right, that are all going to be nationally ranked. So I know it's not what the fans wanted. I know they wanted a couple of those victories against nationally ranked teams, but sometimes it doesn't happen for various reasons, and you got to make best with what you've got, and that's what this team is trying to do.
Tony, Neal Brown made a comment a couple weeks ago that the fans didn't like about shouldn't you be having fun at the games. It was like I'm sure it was. He didn't realize what kind of pile he stepped in when it came to the reaction of that. But has the last couple weeks maybe turned back in his favor? Because he entered last season very much in a tense spot, fought his way out of it, and they were really good. Has it started to maybe feel like it's turned back to where it was at the end of last year?
Again, I think it's going to be determined by where they end up this year, right? And I think that they won 9 games last year, and as you said, they finished strong. And I think that if you can put a 9-win season and then potentially get 8 or 9 wins again in back-to-back years, I think that will, that will quiet it. I just think nowadays, guys, it's human nature that when you don't win, and it's not just at West Virginia, when you don't win, because of social media, the reaction has more amplification than it has ever had before. And I think that, as of right now, there's a bunch of reasons that you could say, like, okay, the thing's trending in the right direction and that the perception may not be the reality. Attendance is up 7% this year. Take the last 2 years combined, it's 12%. You're going into the final 3 games of the regular season. And as you guys know, these standings are all bottled up. And in essence, you still mathematically could get to the title game. And so, there's a lot of pluses, but oftentimes the noise outweighs the reality of the situation. But again, Neal would be the first to admit the only thing that matters at this line of work is winning. And that is the ultimate thing that you must do. And at West Virginia, the history and the tradition, people expect to win and they expect to beat a ranked team or two. And that's been the biggest criticism of Neal, is that they have not, had a lot of W's against ranked teams. And that's kind of become the de facto whether or not the program's headed in the right direction. And so that's kind of the thing that those that aren't happy use the most.
What jumped off the page to you about seeing the defense now that Jeff Coons has taken over? I know it's a very small sample size, Tony. Was it just the turnovers that they were able to get, or was there more to it that you saw?
Yeah, it was a combination of the turnovers and quite simply, and as base as this may sound, they just were not previously getting lined up in time. A signal was coming in late, and as a result, they weren't pre-snap ready. And as you guys know, especially with the way that the tempo works in today's game, if you're not pre-snap ready, you're already way behind and on your way to failing on that play. So that stood out to me. And then in addition to that, as they had kind of said that they were going to do, they turned the thermostat up on applying pressure and basically sold the fact to the kids, hey, you stop first and second down, and we promise you that you will have the ability to go get the quarterback. And pressuring the quarterback, guys, I don't know how much you saw of our game, but we had a pick 6 in that game. That was the result of the quarterback getting hit, and he made a really poor decision just to chuck the ball out there to get rid of it so he wouldn't get sacked. Picked off, and it went 79. And then they caught him again late in the game when the game was still hanging in the balance, hit him from behind and forced a backward pass, which was scooped and scored. And so that would probably be the 3 biggest things: pre-snap ready and the ability to pressure the quarterback, and just, they just looked better.
Tony, what are your thoughts now of this new 16-team Big 12 with, of course, the craziness in Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles Stadium with Utah, BYU, Mark Harlan, and just everything? You like the way this is all kind of meshed together, even though it's not perfect?
Absolutely not. I've talked to you guys about this before. To me, and I sound like the old guy screaming from the, remember the Muppet Show?
Yeah.
The old guys used to sit up there in the balcony and just, hey. Anyway,
yeah.
The essence of college sports is the regionality of the game, and we've certainly lost that. When we're out in Arizona playing, and we're not playing teams that are close to us. Guys, Cincinnati game last week for us was our closest road conference game in 13 years. And, we brought well over 2,000 fans to that game. It's about 5 hours from Morgantown. It's about 4 hours from Charleston. To me, that's what this thing's supposed to be. Now, with all of that being said, would you rather have been left out when all of this happened? Absolutely not. And so you must be in this world. If that includes you having to go out west to play, yes, that's the only way in nowadays business, guys, because of the way that this thing has become, completely driven by television. So I think to answer your question, I'm content in making it the best that it possibly can be. But at the same time, I'm disappointed and sad that we lost the true essence of college sports, and that is to play people, within an arm's distance from you, because that is really what generates emotions and rivalries.
Yeah, the regionality of college sports kind of went out the window, huh? There's still some of that.
Look. You're just saying that now, but 20 years from now, when West Virginia has to play Stanford in a conference game in the Big AC, which they'll call it, you'll be fired up.
Yeah,
you'll be like, I can't wait to play those nerds.
Well, I would say this, guys, and I don't want to talk through the length of your segment, but I mean, to me, one of the things that really makes me go like, whoa, is how quickly this has become professional. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely stunning how quickly this has happened, right? And we saw, okay, all of a sudden, hey, this guy's got the title of general manager, in a college program. That's kind of weird. Well, no. Now, I mean, it's unbelievable how fast this is happening. With the House decision coming to fruition starting in July, and schools at Power 4 levels being on the hook, to come up with $20 million-ish to pay to student athletes, which I guess are just the athletes nowadays. I mean, it's so amazing how fast this has happened, and it's become a professional sport. I talked to an agent on Sunday of this week who had negotiated a Power 4 NIL deal for $10 million for a kid coming out of high school. And you think about that, guys. Yeah. In one way, it's going to keep some really good players in college in the years to come, because if they're a fifth, sixth round draft pick, but they're making a large seven figures in college, they're going to stay there, and they're going to suck that sponge as much as they can. Then they'll try to make it to the pros. So it's truly a mind-boggling thing how it's happened. I completely understand why and why it's happening and how it's happened, but it's still pretty much of a wow to me.
It's like when you see Diego Pavia, right? He's such a great story, and then he goes and he's trying to basically sue to get rid of eligibility rules in college, and there's actually a thought that might be in the horizon, which I don't know about you, but I have absolutely zero interest in seeing a guy play in 8 years in college, even though we're seeing that in spots now, but yeah, that's already being tested as well, so it's just absolutely wild, and I guess nobody to blame ultimately, but those in power when they look in the mirror, unfortunately, but it is crazy times for sure, Tony.
Yeah, no question about it. And then you're exactly right. And I told someone in administration today, I mean, you want to point fingers at the presidents that put these rules together and just held so strongly to the amateurism model. If 20 years ago, guys, they started to go, you know what, we're going to do a little bit of a share here. We're going to start sharing. We'd never be at the point that we are today. But because they went for every single crumb on the table, that's why they're paying this price. Guys, less than 10 years ago, it was an NCAA violation if you put cream cheese on a bagel. That you could give the kid the bagel for breakfast treat. If you put cream cheese, you would report that as an NCAA violation. Now, that's how hard and that's how stone cold they were to trying to protect this amateurism BS. And now, I mean, there are kids that are making more money than assistant coaches at a lot of schools.
Unbelievable.
They're making $1 million on bagel commercials if they want to.
Yeah, that's right. Tony, great stuff, man. Hope you're doing well. Tell Ren Baker he looks great. Lost a lot of weight. Looks like he's very, very healthy right now. And or maybe he lost a lot of weight because of some of the losses and he just couldn't eat or something.
No. He has. I was with him this afternoon, and he is. He's looking great, and I'll tell him you guys said hey.
Yep, thank you. Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics, with us on 365 Sports.